I would like to start the LTE-us debate. Today's motion is this House would impose a significantly higher inheritance tax. The format is Asian parliamentary, so that's 6-minute speeches with a 30-second grace period. POIs can be given after the first minute and before the 5th minute. And without further ado, I'd like to invite the Prime Minister. You may begin.
So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable Judge, in the current status quo, the gap between the rich and poor is increasing. And why is this a problem? It is because it gets worse as time passes. So the problem takes much effort to solve this problem, and this is a structural problem of capitalism, and so it is actually very hard to be solved. And so for this reason, we, the government side, propose today's motion. The motion is, this House would impose a significantly higher inheritance tax, and we, the government side, strongly agrees with today's motion. So first of all, the word significantly higher. So since our ultimate goal is to reduce this gap, we're only gonna impose this to rich people. I would like to make some characterizations from some stakeholders from today's debate. So first of all, wealth is actually luck-based. So maybe there might be lucky business ideas, or generally less deserved companies to workers that work tirelessly. And it might be wealth that is illegally earned. So for example, like colonialism or maybe slavery and etc. And then the word inheritance. So the inheritance tax, in the dictionary, it says that tax that has to be paid on the money and the property of someone who has died. And so inheritance tax is actually the money that has nothing with the receiver. And so let's compare this to things such as income tax. So that is actually tax to a live person, so the harms they claim are amplified. And then I would like to move on to our team's first argument, which is about the birth lottery. So in this argument, the main point is that meeting parents is luck, and we cannot choose our parents. So to reduce this gap between the rich and poor, the first thing to do is to make people start in the same start line, and this cannot be affected by our parents. So for example, I would like to talk about the main owner of the Samsung. So I would like to give you a question. Who will have a higher chance to live a better life, the son of the main owner of Samsung or the son of a poor man? I would like to answer this by the son of the main owner of Samsung. And it has relation to one's whole life, so it is very important. So now I'd like to compare the principle of the opposition and our government side. So the opposition principle is like to be the right to control our own wealth, but this is actually lacks legitimacy because people only earn wealth because the society has existed. So for example, I can work in a company because there is a fair market created by the government's regulation, and because I work, I can get money. So not earned alone, certain responsibilities towards society still exists. And this is the importance of the principles. So in our government's case, there's more fundamental rights damaged. So in the government's case, we can protect the fundamental rights, and the opposition sides are damaging the fundamental rights of the people. And so for this reason, we believe that in the first argument is very important, and we need to support this motion. And secondly, I would like to talk about the development by tax. So by using the tax, we can develop the society. The countries like Denmark or Sweden have a high happiness rate, and they have good welfare facilities, and they have an environment where people can get good education. And these welfare comes from tax. And by supporting and by imposing this motion, we can make those welfare facilities as well in our country. And so this is good for the rich people as well, because there are too much poor people. So if there are too much poor people, then it has no good effect to the country itself, and the speed of the development will lag, and this will actually give a negative effect to the rich people as well, and therefore the development is needed to rich people as well. So now I would like to talk about the development through tax, or the development by the companies. So why does the development through tax win? So first of all, it's an unsustainable development. So the government supports generally good, but companies only care about the profits. environmental harms, for example, like using fossil fuels are cheaper, and they might build other buildings that damage the environment. And there might be children labor, bad labor conditions created from the same reason. But as the government, they should support other values because they are they represent the country, and so they have to think about other values as well. And then secondly, no inheritance means richer and companies stay richer. So money buys money through investments. So for example, investment in new technology we invest in new technology and we get money from that. And since redistribution of wealth does not happen, certain companies stay rich. They allow monopolies and they allow for monopolies to happen. And being rich means that they can produce more, be productive, and earn more money. And harms of that is since competition is small, less reason to provide better products at a lower price. And thirdly, companies always have threat of escaping to foreign countries. If they think that they will earn more money overseas, they will go. So this might happen because it is cheaper to produce in other countries or change of consumer preference or etc. And so for these points, actually we believe that developing through tax is much more better. And so for these reasons, I'm very proud to propose and thank you for listening to my speech.
Sorry, just wait like 1 or 2 minutes. I'd like to invite the leader of opposition. You're here. You may begin.
Fellow debaters and honorable judge, welcome to the opposition side of the House. Our House takes the opposition side for the motion. The House will impose a significantly higher inheritance tax. Currently, discussions on whether to increase the inheritance tax significantly are a global issue. Contrary to some cases expressing a supporting side to increasing the inheritance tax, the current trend has turned into an easing inheritance taxes. Among OECD member and countries, 19 countries have no inheritance tax burden when inheriting direct descendants, and 10 countries have reduced their tax rates. In Korea, for instance, there are a number of cases in which excessive inheritance tax damage is combined with ineffective inheritance deduction systems to give up corporate succession. Sweden, which had an inheritance tax rate of 70%, abolished the inheritance tax in 2005 and replaced it with a capital gains tax that imposes transfer taxes on profits generated when heirs sell their assets, furthering the debate between supporting significantly increased inheritance tax and going against it. In this manner, our side takes the opposition side for the motion. So for the characterization, companies are essential for economic wealth of everyone and takes the most of the country's GDP. Its benefits nearly trickle down, and the taxes are collected by government. It provides workplaces, high-level technology for people of the country. So inheritance is the last gift from the parent to the child. It is not just for the rich, but everybody wishes to get this. It is also sometimes intertwined with emotions as well. And some modeling before we continue is very essential. So our side proposes the amount of inheritance tax of the status quo. It should not be changed. However, our side does not support tax evasions or unjustified accumulation of wealth. And for the metrics now, the first is which side fosters a better economic development. Before talking about the subject though, I shall do a rebuttal on the Prime Minister's argument. So first, it is clear that companies take up extremely high shares of country GDP. For instance, tax is paid by companies, and tax is also paid by workers who work in companies. There's such a high dependency is on the companies. Without that, tax could be just taken from people with little money or less. After all, we also collect tax from companies, which is not just high inheritance taxes. We short-sighted to perceive companies as only profit-pursuing system is what I suggest. So companies are vital as it stands in the middle of production and selling. It can also mean that companies need to survive or represent our identity in the abroad. Furthermore, tax may not be properly used for companies' development. So if it means that companies are inflicted by it, then it should not be done. Now for the argument. First of all, it is an unjustifiable form of depriving one's right. There are diverse types of tax, such as income tax, corporation tax, and so on. Inheritance tax, however, is a form of tax that is imposed. However, it is awfully short-sighted to view it only as another form of just tax. Before we even talk about imposing a significantly higher inheritance tax, there is a need to determine whether inheritance tax itself is legitimate or not. Inheritance tax is what whoever receives it rightfully deserves. It is a certain form of right. Does the country have a right to take away such definite right that every human acquired? Inheritance tax unfairly takes away a certain right that every human has while not doing the same with other rights. It is ironic and unacceptable to consider that as a legally and ethically just taxation. To view it further, for those who are left behind, it is rightfully their property as well as what unifies them together after one step. In that sense, it is inappropriate to increase it as it will deprive one's definite right and can have ethical issues for being related to the death of the close ones. For the second point, it may something run a corporation and may create side effects. Inheritance tax takes for only 3.7% of nation's financiality, which is relatively small compared to other taxes rate. Nevertheless, the amount of tax inheritance tax imposes is quite a lot, and if it's raised significantly, it may severely affect the corporation's management. It is important to note here that inheritance tax is mostly used in corporation as well. Those whose parents or relatives own the company may attempt to succeed it and use it to carry on the management. However, excessive inheritance tax can easily discourage entrepreneurship and can greatly put a corporation at risk by threatening management as well. Management rights. Consequently, excessive inheritance tax may take up more than half of what is inherited, and it is not easy to succeed a company while paying a huge tax rate. It is difficult to obtain huge amounts of cash for high tax rates, and even if they succeed, they are likely to inherit shares, which are likely to be threatened by management rights, leading to instability. This could lead to giving up corporation right, as it's easy to forbid management succession and sell businesses that have worked for most of their lives to their others. For instance, Rock and Rock, 37, and Universal, which used to be Korea's corporation, was given up by overwhelming successors due to excessive amount of inheritance tax. In one case, much money was required as inheritance tax, which is too much. These companies were all turned over to overseas, leaving Korea with less companies. Let's take the case of Kim Jong-un for example. After Kim Jong-ju, the Nixon founder's death, the Minister of Strategy and Finance became the second largest shareholder of Nixon's holding company as the bereaved family trading stock, due to having no money to pay inheritance taxes. This will severely affect the company's growth as it comes to the lack of budget. This will have a huge impact on the country as it will result in huge loss of many companies in full of potential and lead to uncertainty of South Korea if you go further. On the other hand, decreasing the inheritance tax can have positive effects. According to Korean Federation of Small and Medium Businesses and the Archie Research Institute, it was predicted that just reducing the inheritance tax by 50% would create numerous jobs and increase corporate sales by 179 trillion.
All right. Thanks for their speeches. I'm going to cut the camera for like 1 second to see if it's properly recording. Next, I'd like to invite the deputy speakers, starting with the DPM. You may begin.
My timer starts in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, Your Honor, adjudicator. I think the opposition already lost the debate when they rely on the company for the general good of the society, since it is clear that they are unstable and immoral. Aside from this point, their case also revolves around people with loss of will, which flags the clear strategic problems that they have made from the leader of the opposition. Now, I'll hear about the arguments given by the leader of the opposition. The previous speaker has mentioned that as reporting outside, they have said that the taxes might not be fully used for the country's development. However, as a corporate government, we want to say that the taxes are often used for the country. They are legislative measures to guarantee this, as the governments are run under the law that they spend tax for their citizens. Fine, let's talk about the developing and corrupt countries that the taxing law basis is raised upon. It is still true that at least some money is used for the citizens. Even if it's a small number, we still would. This is because they still need to prevent things such as civil rights or coups that could happen if they govern extremely statutorily. So why should we still have a high inheritance tax? There's a greater rich and poor gap because the developing democracy means unfair chance to succeed for poor people. Also because in those scenarios, opposition arguments are immensely mitigated because there are fewer influential companies in those countries, hence we reject the framing. Also, they have claimed that it is not easy for the company of paying high inheritance tax. However, side operation, I will want to ask one question. In our world, we actually pay a lot of taxes more than we ever thought about. It is also the companies. They pay various types of taxes, and if we plus all it together, it would be quite a lot of money. Side opposition, as a stable corporation, would the company just collapse in 1 second by increasing the inheritance tax? Stable corporations do not collapse as easily as we ever think. On a indicator, we also agree that yes, it could give a corporation a burden of paying it. However, wouldn't this actually help them and be a fair action? The more we pay the tax, the more we get the benefits. Think about the countries in Europe who pay a lot of taxes to the government. It's the same burden of paying a lot of taxes, but it eventually comes back to them with the government support. Same as the inheritance tax too. As the government, if we get more money from the taxes, the government will be able to invest more money on the other facilities or programs to support the company. Regarding this, wouldn't the corporation be more motivated to pay the taxes? We believe so. The last point is that the increase of the economy is not always the best. The equality of economic opportunity is also important. Opposition promotes monopoly and oligopoly since wealth is not redistributed and stays in the giant companies. This is not good because the competition is less fair. Companies will have less incentive to produce better goods at a lower price. Also, the previous speakers mentioned that people have a right to their own wealth. However, they did not earn the wealth in their own power. The money was actually earned because there was a society for them. A society created a fair market, gave a place for the companies to be made and people to be employed. There are laws that are made to prevent death and wars. It is clear that people have a responsibility to the government. Also, wealth is oftentimes illegally earned. For example, colonialism. People of colonizer countries earn money because they were in charge of the colonialism. People of colonized countries earn money because they support the colonizers. This was not redistributed in a lot of cases because it was extremely difficult to prosecute the people because A, the lack of the evidence being kept because it is 60 years ago and more and the colonizer countries were in charge of that. And B, the lack of being able to prove guilty. After all, illegal money is still kept because guess what? You did not distribute it. We must increase the inheritance tax because we protect the vulnerable people better, keeping more fundamental rights. Rich people extremely small sacrifices. They cannot give lots of money to their children, but that's fine, just give a little bit or spend it for themselves. Meanwhile, poor people have a high sacrifice. The poor class of the developed countries, they obviously have much less rights because they have less money than the others. To give some examples, they need money to give the children private education, and they would want enough safety, move to a place with less gunfires. They will want to eat better food, not barely edible ones. Now, I would like to move on to our team's third argument, how passing today's motion will benefit the stakeholders of today's motion. Firstly, if it not pass today's motion, it will cause an accumulation of wealth in certain families. On a daycare, increasing the inheritance tax is one way to stop only one particular family from actually having a lot of money and gaining power. In the society that we are actually living in, money symbolizes the power that we actually have. This means that the more money that we have, the more we get the higher social status at the end of the day. If we don't increase the inheritance tax, then the family who has a rich predecessor will actually be able to have a lot of money, which will eventually lead their family to be rich. If their wealth becomes accumulated, this could lead those families to have a greater political power due to lobbying, and a great social power since people treat them nicely to earn money and also gain power. Is this a society that we want to live in? A society where rich people get more richer and one particular family dominates the whole country's government. Unequal political power leads to over-representation of the rich and under-representation of the poor. This means that there will be less politics and government action for the poor. This motion is a true believable solution for this. Secondly, if the motion does not pass, there will be families staying poor for the generations. On a dedicator, as I mentioned before, the money became the one who symbolizes the power and the social status that the one can have. If we leave the inheritance tax, the poor people will be left out of the society where the rich people are ruling over. If we look further out in the future society, the crime rates will eventually become higher because the poor people will generally feel negatively, which will lead to crimes. Also, not only that, because the poor people can think that they cannot succeed with the traditional system, which is trying our best to earn money, they will resort to other methods, which is eventually crime. This will harm others by crimes such as murder or robbery. To prevent this, we need to stop the core of the problem where rich people get more richer. The motion can solve this. Increase of the inheritance tax will help us. Today, I give you the 3 independent have the path to win the debate. First, on justification, we prove why wealth accumulation is inherently unfair and even more unjustified when we allow inheritors to pass down the wealth with small taxes. Secondly, on the vulnerability of the stakeholders, we protect the ones in need. Third, on the sustainability and efficiency of the desired developments assisted by the government. Thus, the motion was stand, and I yield the rest of my time. So.
Thank you for that speech, and I'd like to invite the DLO now. You may begin.
Hello all, my
Okay.
name is Lee Sung-young and I'll be talking about double taxation as the negative proof. Before we move on to the topic, I want you to know the exact meaning of inheritance tax. It's a tax left on the acquired by taxing property, transfer free of charge to the death of a natural person is called inheritance tax. In other words, it is the property that the deceased here collected after regularly paying income and property taxes in accordance with the duty of tax payment. Therefore, from the perspective of a person who paid income tax and property tax before life, there is a double taxation. There are two main reasons to support this. First of all, given that the country's tax system differs by taxable sectors such as income tax, corporate tax, property tax, and transfer tax based on social, culture, and historical context, it is unreasonable to simply compare inheritance tax separately. The problem is the combined tax rate of income tax plus inheritance tax. Korea's combined top tax rate is higher than any other countries in the world. The second ranked Japan is 100% and Korea is 105% since Korea's 2020 tax law amendment has the National Assembly. This is why there is a controversy over this double taxation, which is paying in living and dying despite the cost of protecting the inheritance of wealth and redistributing wealth. Second, inheritance tax is contradictory. Consequently, inheritance tax is a double taxation because the deceased here have paid all taxes in the process of forming a property and levies it on the natural phenomenon of death, not an economic activity that generates profits. On the other hand, seen from the inheritor, the property can be an unearned income. However, in principle, Korea's civil law stipulates that the heir inherits the legal status of the heir by inheritance and comprehensively inherits the rights and obligations of the heir. Here, imposing inheritance tax again while stipulating comprehensive succession by the heir is contradictory, considering that the heir paid all the necessary taxes in the process of forming the property and legally forming the inherited property. As a result, even if the inheritance isn't abolished, the inheritance tax does not conform to current legislation, so at least efforts to enact the law are needed. During the Joseon Dynasty, Korea changed the law of taxation on the death. Inheritance tax, which is taxed as a natural cause of death, is similar. Inheritance tax, which shows more injustice as well as double taxation, clearly needs to be improved. Therefore, our team believes that since the inheritance tax is a double taxation, efforts to abolish inheritance tax or at least improve the law are necessary. The main reason for that is as follows. The first is because the concept of inheritance tax is contradictory, and the second is because the combined tax rate of inheritance tax and import tax is 100%, which is inappropriate. Now I would like to talk about the PM's opinion. The PM tried to tell us that we can expect redistribution of wealth through inheritance tax. We, the negative team, believe that this statement is false for some reasons. First, the PM said too much poor people is no good for the country. The gap between the rich and the poor is a serious social problem that we must solve. Solving social problems is the driving force of the development. We have to solve this problem by helping to self-sufficiency together. Social problems are not the richest fault. It is not an obligation but an option that they should help the poor just because they have a lot of money. But by helping together, we could start the game in the same start line but in higher quality, like you said, and build facilities through inheritance tax. However, this trigger using inheritance tax to build welfare facility has no practical effect. In order to build welfare facilities using inheritance tax, it will be necessary to pay as much as the inheritance tax collected by companies that the inheritance tax collected from the general public. If so, the operator of welfare facilities will only change to the government, not the company that paid inheritance tax. This is certainly for the development of the country, but from a corporate point of view, it is no different from the building they built, and if they do not have the right to operate, they can complain. Redistribution of wealth can be attractive to many people, seen by Harvard. However, it decreases people's motivation to work and productivity. What is redistribution? It's a redistribution of wealth which is rather counterproductive, the basis for the populist argument. Our team was curious about this. Overall, the PM says that the wealth gap can be eased and a better society can be created by establishing welfare facilities and investing with the money of the rich. However, efforts to create a better society are something that all members of society must work together. Thank you.
Now we'll invite the government whip.
Good afternoon, Your Honorable Adjudicator and fellow members of the Parliament. My name is Park Hyun and the government whip of today's debate. Today's motion is about this House would highly impose the inheritance tax. To begin with, for the government stance, argues that it can be realized through inheritance tax to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor and to increase taxes to improve the quality of welfare and eventually to find stability in the country. For the opposition side argues that the inheritance tax cannot be ethically justified. Also, several side effects can be expected, so the inheritance tax should not be highly imposed. The first clash is about justice. What is the justice? The opposition mentioned that the side effect that is expected of the inheritance tax is corporate enormous damage. As a result, huge corporate losses will adversely affect the nation's economic situation and will not be met in terms of stability, which is the original purpose of inheritance tax. For companies that play an important role in the state, it cannot be said that justice is to turn a blind eye to the poor and not raise inheritance taxes. It cannot be justified to turn a blind eye to social problems for the sake of national stability, only for the economic development of the country and for companies that play the greatest role in the nation's economy. In addition, I think the fact that companies are greatly affected by high inheritance tax is a society that needs to be changed. It means that companies have been maintained through inheritance until now that they impose high inheritance taxes and eventually hurt their lives, and I think this is a vicious cycle that makes the rich more rich and the poor more poor. I think an inheritance tax increase is urgently needed to break this vicious cycle. Moreover, the more tax they impose, the more supports they can receive. The welfare is not only for the poor, but for everyone, including corporate. Also, I strongly believe all the money to inherit is not the result of individual efforts, but from society, through people, and eventually, the concept of returning such money to society and the government is more suitable for inheritance tax. According to socially defined justice is giving people the equal opportunities. In fact, the justice defined is distributive justice. Distributive justice refers to fair distribution at various levels, including punishment, status, power, honor, and self-preservation, as well as economic resources such as money and wealth. It is another name for equality, which is considered the most important value of democracy in modern political philosophy, along with freedom. I could define that justice is giving people same opportunities, not limited by one's talent or one's abundant environment like family. Not everyone will be born with equal opportunities. Their start line will be different. For example, in track and field, we give long track to the beginner who starts from the front. The only way to give everyone equal opportunities is to control the track length. I strongly believe that the tax is the only way. The inheritance tax has the role of giving people the same opportunities. The second question is ethical justice related to welfare. The oppositions mention that the inheritance tax is not ethically justified because it is not ethically justified to tax money received after the death of a family member. However, if the result of complete inheritance is that the poor starving to death, not introducing inheritance tax will not be ethically justified. When the rich monopolize economically through inheritance, the unethical damage caused by the creations of the poor can be minimized through inheritance tax. If the inheritance tax is not raised because it is not ethically justified, there will be more starving poor people, and this is contradictory and not ethically justified. In the aspect of ethical justice, the inheritance is the only way to defend ethical justice. As a result, according to these two clashes, for the justice of fairness and the justice of ethics, the social problem, the gap between the poor and the rich has been issued for many years, but there aren't any alternatives to solve this problem. The inheritance tax is the best way to give people the equal opportunities, also break corporate vicious cycle, so the inheritance tax should be highly imposed.
Just give me like 1 minute. Next, I'll invite the opposition reply. Again, that's the opposition reply, not the proposition reply.
Given that tax revenues and jobs have increased and the local economy has developed, raising inheritance taxes does not have much influence. They are replaced them with capital gains taxes that impose transfer taxes on profit generated when they sell their assets. Nor can it be concluded that in some of these cases, inheritance tax is unconditionally used to develop the country, increases the quality of life, and leads to a life with adequate finances. So we question whether inheritance tax will be effective, which is the practical effect. Therefore, we oppose to raising the inheritance tax. There is also a moral issue with inheritance tax. In the case of various developed countries such as South Korea and the United States, inheritance tax is paid. This raises the question of whether it is morally right to pay a tax bill to families who have already died and are grieving. It is a property formed by the cases who faithfully paid income taxes and property tax, and I think it is a double tax that the state will tax this property again. Finally, inheritance tax can hinder the natural growth of a company and cause the side effect. In Korea, for example, a huge inheritance tax is required to inherit a company. So due to excessive inheritance tax, the Ministry of Strategy and Finance becomes the second largest shareholder of NXC, the holding company of Nexon, a game company. The amount of inheritance tax is known to be about 6 trillion won, and few people live with 6 trillion won in cash. There is nothing that a public official who doesn't know the game industry can do as the second largest shareholder of NXT. So NXT has spent a lot of money and time to solve the problem, causing great damage to companies. In conclusion, our team disagree about making higher inheritance tax. Thank you.
All right. Let's invite the government reply to the floor now.
Good evening, Honorable Judge. During this debate, our side as the government of the motion has proved that the increase of the inheritance tax is actually helping up our society as a whole. Regarding this, we believe that we should take the debate home. Tonight, our central issue of the debate was is imposing a significantly higher inheritance tax is more effective to people. To elaborate, the opposition team argued that imposing a higher inheritance tax is meaningless, and it just being a burden towards the citizen and the corporation in our world. However, we, the government, argued that imposing a high inheritance tax is more effective. If we increase the inheritance tax, it will further motivate the company to be more better, and as the proper corporation we take look into, it is meaningless of saying that they will be just gone in 1 second. With this, we have proven our side to be better by having discussed our three arguments. Now, the best case offered by the opposition team is the development by tax doesn't happen easily, and our team's worst case is the birth lottery. Let us take a moment to entertain the opposition team's idea that only companies care about profits and the government does not. Opposition team said that taxes may not be used properly for national development, so if it means that the company will be damaged by this, and it is an unjustifiable form of depriving one's right. And they said the government has no right to take away the people's rights. Even granting this, we still won because there are lots of ways to develop the society by using taxes. When we look at Denmark and Switzerland, they have really good welfare facilities that are made by using the citizens' taxes. When we look at this, we can make some welfare facilities using inheritance tax too. And this is good for the rich people in this country too. When there are too many poor people, it gives a bad effect to the rich people because the speed of development will be lacking. So inheritance tax is now giving a good effect to our society, and it can be used for social development. Honorable Judge, can you really say that inheritance tax is bad for our society? increase of the inheritance tax might seem a bit burden to other people in the first place. However, in the end of the day, it could help the corporation and the people in our society. We as the government, we believe that this is a right action as a corporate government. We strongly claim that through inheritance tax, we can get lots of advantage. There are lots of activities you do in your life, lots of things are connected to the government. Do you think that you can live out of the government support? Citizens need to help the government, and that is the real reason why the government exists. Thus, the motion will stand, and I have the rest of my time to the floor.
Okay. Is the student judge ready to give like feedback right now? How much time do you need? 1 or 2 minutes. Okay. You may begin.
First of all, for the Prime Minister, I think the false good is for a few pronunciation mistakes. However, I think she was able to give their teams a use well. For the leader of opposition, all the ideas were explained well. However, I know there are a lot of things to say, but I think the speed was a little bit too fast. For the Deputy Prime Minister, I think she was able to say all her side's ideas. However, I was not able to catch any eye contact, and even though I understand there was a lot of things to say, I think that was a bit disappointing. For the Deputy Leader of Opposition, the phone was good, and for the improvements, I think it would have been better if there had been a bit more things to say. For the government, personally, I think she was able to say her opinions with the right speed. However, more eye contact would have been better. And for the opposition, when the phone was good and there are some good examples of leaders, but there are a few times when they stopped, but I think the speech overall was good. For the opposition reply, I think she wrapped up their team's opinions well. However, I wasn't able to catch it. For government reply, the flow was also good, and she was able to give her team's opinions well. And however, I also wasn't able to catch any eye contact, so that was a bit disappointing. Overall, I think in this debate, the opposition side won, considering the examples and reasons why inheritance tax should not be fair.
So, overall, I think it was a pretty good debate because there was enough arguments that were proper, enough structure. I think there was enough engagements. But I'll give some general comments first, and then I'll do reasons for decision. So for general comments, I think you need to do more POIs because obviously there weren't any things done here. So, because the reason why POIs are important because it shows that you want to win, and it shows that you want to win, and it shows that you are listening to the speech properly. And it's also a factor that disturbs the speaker from speaking, and it's a right that people sitting down should use. So I believe it is important. The second general comment is that I think the student judge picked this out. You should do more eye contact. So it's fine to read from a phone. That's why I didn't stop that. But why you're reading from a phone or a paper or an iPad, it doesn't matter. You need to look at it, and then you need to look back at the judge. One way you can do this is don't write everything down. I mean, obviously it takes time to change from writing everything to writing in bullet points and notes. But sometimes it's better to do that so that you can actually talk to the judge and feel more genuine and sound more genuine when you're saying that. The third general comment is I need you guys to weigh a bit more because weighing as in why my point is better than your point. So basically what a whip should do and what a clash should do. Because at the end of the day, in middle school debates, it's more about weighing, and it's not just I said this and you said this, and the judge should decide which is better. No, you should decide that for me so I can make it easier for me to know. The reason for decision, I gave the win to, I gave the win to proposition, so I think that was different for the student judge. So I have two clashes. Firstly, mainly on principle, is it justified? Proposition side says yes. They should be distributed in order to keep the basic rights of people, and the wealth is oftentimes illegally earned or out of luck, and it is the inheritor's money, not the heir's money. Inheritors can use the money in other ways if possible, and that the money has existed because society has helped to earn the money, and compared to other taxes, it is much better. The opposition side said no, because they should not redistribute the money because they earn the money by themselves, and that it is way too much to take so much of the money, and about the morality of taxing debt. So why do I think the proposition has won this clash? First of all, opposition needs to better respond to others helped gain the vote, and to the point of how wealth is often justifiably earned, sometimes lucky or sometimes because it was a crime. So that points were important to tackle why it should be taken away, but there was less response to that. But vulnerability of stakeholders, I think that was a weighing point from the proposition side somewhere, and it was the main reason why proposition could win, because it proves why you are protecting the more important people, and that is a weighing factor that I believe should be taken into consideration. And proposition successfully breaks down the point about right to vote, as it is not their own vote, it is the vote of the inheritors, not the heirs. And I think the morality point wasn't too important. I mean, I can't really decide because you didn't tell me how important it is, but it was tackled down because it is more important for alive people to have money in essential. The second clash was about practical. Does it help economically? The proposition side says yes, because government development is for everybody, like everybody including the poor, and the company has negative externalities. The opposition side says it's no, because company development is stronger. I think the winner of the clash was proposition 2, because you need to be more responsive with the points in general. So why is it okay to develop despite it not being for everybody? Why is negative externalities okay? Or why does it not happen? Or why is it rare? I think there needs to be better responses to this. And for the weighing point, it is also true that you need another principle that you need another point you're trying to push against development is for everybody. So I think that was the main thing for the proposition and why they went. And I didn't really have that much time for feedback because I need to let you guys go. So I'll give you individual feedbacks in the Google documents when I finish writing. So that's it for today.